Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology and leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading and notebooks and writing, mixed in with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. You can expect regular weekly episodes focused on 3 books you need to know about on a bookish theme and how to bring those themes to life in our actual lives too. You can also expect author interviews, notebooking inspiration, and topics to help us grow through what we go through and take inspired action to make our lives better. So grab a notebook and your TBR list and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, your host and head bookologist, here to introduce you to today's topic and today's special guest. Now, in the over 100 episodes that we've been together, we've explored a lot about the reading life, why we read, what we might want to read, how to read best, how to enhance our reading life through the 5 senses, how to combine reading and writing together. We've had so many beautiful author conversations and so much more that we've explored. But today we are talking about a topic that I've never talked about on the podcast yet: who we read to and with. Now, reading is often a solitary act. We typically read in silence, independently, on our own, but we might share that reading with others. We may have book buddies, we may have bookish besties, be part of book clubs, even share what we're thinking with the authors, the illustrators, and other readers on social media. But what if we talked about who we read with during the reading process? That's the unexpected topic we're going to talk about today with an unexpected audience. We are talking today about reading with your 4-legged friends. Reading with your pets. How does reading with, and maybe even reading to, the pets in your home enhance the reading experience? And so we are talking specifically about reading therapy dogs. Now, you don't have to have a reading therapy dog to get the benefits of reading to or with one, right? Any snuggly animal will do, and most of us have pets in our own home that read with us or next to us or alongside us as we read. I know my own dogs like to jump up on the couch and snuggle when they know I've settled in, and I often hear dogs snoring as background music to that reading life. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this topic of reading with our pets, and we're going to invite a special guest. So today I'm talking with Dr. Barb Vokatis. Now, like me, Barb is a literacy teacher educator, and if you can think back long enough with me, she was actually one of my students. And over time, her work has evolved and developed to explore the power of reading therapy dogs. And so she's here to talk about her work and to think through how we can bring the benefits of a therapy dog to our own reading life with our own pets in our home. Now, here's the thing about today's episode. In the recording, when Barb and I were talking, unfortunately, I had a few audio mishaps, and my very basic editing skills couldn't recover some of what was lost. Lesson learned about the best way to record interviews in the future, and a whole lot of lessons learned about how to attempt to edit my audio. So I'm quite certain that this will not happen again, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a warning that some of the interview might appear to be a little disjointed, and that's because it is. I had to remove certain audio clips in order to get over my snafus and make the interview flow as much as possible. So we'll open up by introducing Barb to the Get Literate podcast. She'll introduce herself. We'll talk about the benefits of therapy dogs and how we can enhance our own reading life through reading with our four-legged friends. She'll talk about the picture book she has written in the process of this work and end with ways to find her. But I want you to stay on after that interview ends because I'm coming back. I'm coming back with 3 books that I think you might want to add to your TBR list that are around this theme. Fictional novels that support this love of therapy dogs and love of animals inside the plot, the setting, the characters, and the themes. I think they're feel-good books that could add a really unique stance to your TBR list. So get ready for the interview, but stick around for the book recommendations after. And here we go, ready to welcome Dr. Barb Vokatis to the Get Literate podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, and we're talking about something we've never explored on the podcast before. In the over 100 episodes that we have been together, we have explored why we read, what we might want to read, how to enhance our reading through our 5 senses and restorative reading, how to combine reading and writing together. We've had author conversations and so much more. But never have we talked about who we could read to or with. So reading is often a solitary act. We read by ourselves and often silently. We might connect with others, but that's typically after we read. Maybe our book buddies, our bookish besties, book clubs, connecting with authors, sharing what we're reading on social media, all the things. But we've never talked about who we might read with and to during the act of reading. And that's what we're going to do today. But not just people. We're talking about reading to our 4-legged friends, furry friends right by our side. We're talking about reading therapy dogs today. Now, you don't have to have a therapy dog to enjoy the benefits of reading with a pet. Many of us have pets in our own home that we could think about today, but we are going to explore the benefits of that practice and specifically reading therapy dogs with Dr. Barb Vokatis. Now, like me, Barb is a literacy teacher educator and FYI was one of my students so many years ago. And her work has developed and she has been exploring this exact topic in her field. And she's here to talk to us all about it. Barb, welcome to the Get Literate podcast. I'm so glad you're here to catch up and you tell us all the things.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me. I am just so honored and excited. This is amazing.
Yeah, this will be fun. This will be a fun catch up, and you're going to really talk to us about a topic that we've never talked about before. So why don't you start with introductions? Give everybody a little bit of the backstory. I already filled them in that we've known each other for a while. We worked together. We were in literacy programs together. So give us the background and what led you to working with therapy dogs.
Sure. So I have quite a bit of educational experience and international too, because originally I am from Poland, but right now working as an associate professor at SUNY Anianta. And my daughter, Kalina, was diagnosed with autism when Kalina was, I think she was 6 or 7 years old. So that was kind of a really hard diagnosis to accept, to understand. It's not something that I even wanted to hear. It was a very difficult situation for me personally, and eventually I started thinking, because of difficulties learning with school that Kalina experienced, I started thinking, what else is missing from schools? Why is it that my child doesn't always feel good in school? Her needs are not always met. Is it just about people, teachers, psychologists. Something's not working here. We need to do some more. And so that's kind of the beginning of this thinking and trying to figure out how to maybe help autistic children, because all of a sudden I started hearing from other parents too about these experiences. And then we got our dog, Golden Doodle Carmel, when Kalina was 10 years old. So we waited for quite a while. And then we saw this amazing interaction she had with our dog and how this dog like transformed her happiness. It was just an amazing thing to see. And we then enrolled our dog in obedience classes and things like that because she was very hard to handle. Golden doodles, they can be any dog actually, without training, they can be very unruly. It was really even hard to walk her. So we enrolled in obedience class. And anyway, with the wonderful trainer, we heard from her, you know what, your dog would be a wonderful therapy dog. And that's how it all started. So we started then working towards obtaining the certification to become a therapy dog team. And then once that happened in 2018, I started taking Carmel to the local school where my daughter is. And I've seen since that time, we've been doing this for 6 years, which is unbelievable, really, when I think of it. uh, I'm a full-time professional, so I can't take my dog every day. But even one visit in a classroom per week is amazing and very transformational. And I've seen how all children respond incredibly to the presence of my dog. But children who have any kind of issues, disability, anxiety, their response is incredible because it truly transforms their readiness for learning. So that's how it kind of all started in the background of this. Everything seems connected right now, but I didn't see all the connections, all the pieces connected in the past.
Yeah. I didn't realize that story. It's, such a personal connection that now you're taking something that you saw help your daughter
Mhm.
and now just making it bigger, making that more of a purpose for you and sharing it with kids. And I would say, yes, it's helpful for kids in schools, but I know from my own experience, I've gotten visits from therapy dogs in the hospital. My kids have gotten visits from them. I've seen and felt as an adult the power of how that feels when you have someone who's just there to just be with you and just love you and sit there with you. It's a great feeling. We have 4 dogs. And we do have a golden doodle, Barb, and that golden doodle is naughty and so full of energy. We are in the
Yep.
process of trying to get him to calm down. And I had big dreams about his name is Zeke. I thought, oh, Zeke could be a therapy dog at the local library.
Yep.
Got all the information. And then I realized Zeke's personality isn't ready yet to be a nice, calm therapy dog. But there is just something so powerful about the calmness and just that sense of peace. It's almost like it just calms us down a little bit to know that someone is there.
It is. It's just totally different feeling. In school, I mean, when you think about who children encounter in schools, it's teachers, it's, I don't know, a nurse, principal, maybe psychologist. Um, these are people who kind of judge them all
Yeah.
the time. And I've seen children who do not speak at all in school. They do not say a word to the teacher. And even teachers who are experienced and lovely teachers who truly love children they teach, they are not able to break that silence of this child. So you can only imagine in every school, you might have several kids like that. In every school, there will be a case, at least one. And I remember in that one situation, we came in. I didn't know about these children specifically, what their issues are. We just came in. I just came in with my dog, and then I learned from the teacher what happened. So one time we came in, and Carmel, she's a therapy dog, very calm, but she has some pretty cool personality. She likes to be funny too. And I remember, I think she touched this boy with her nose or something, and he was just really laughing. It was so funny to him. And he said something like, "Oh, Carmel, you are so funny. I love you so much." So that was the first time the teacher actually heard this boy say something.
Wow.
And that create this kind of a breakthrough moment for this child, that first time when he started speaking. So again, a person could not do this, what an animal can do. uh, Animals are also a little bit smaller. I mean, they have fur, they don't judge, they just have all this happiness, and they are so happy they see you. They don't want anything from you. And children know that. They feel that, just
Yeah.
like that.
What are some of the benefits that you have found, whether in your personal visits to the school with your daughter or just the research and the process you have gone through to become a therapy dog? What are some of the ways? I know you've given us one example, but what are some of the benefits of having a therapy dog or even just choosing to read with one or spend time with one?
Benefits are incredible, and we finding now more and more about even more benefits. In research, benefits in terms of children reading to the dog are well known and documented. There is quite a few studies. I remember when I looked at them, and again, you're reading to someone who's listening to you, but you are not judged. Uh, so this is very helpful. But there's so many other benefits. Just the simple presence of the dog calms down, uh, engages, entertains too. For children who have attention deficit, they can all of a sudden just direct their attention to the dog. And now it's really also up to the teacher to take this to some other levels. And that's actually something what I'm doing. So with the collaborating teacher, we started doing some writing activities with children. I remember after COVID, children's writing skills were really not the greatest, and it was very hard to make them even write a sentence. And we started doing some activities, including my dog. We were starting to think like how else we can include Carmel. So it's not just Carmel walking around the classroom. That's awesome, and it helps children. It really does help, and that creates a good learning atmosphere. But what else can you do? And something simple that we thought of was, at that time there was a theme of kindness in school. So we asked children, and these were second graders, like, uh, how does Carmel show that she's a kind dog? And all the kids wanted to talk about this. They wanted to describe how Carmel shows kindness. Even children who were usually shy, who didn't want to talk in the classroom, they all want to talk about their dog that they love. And they come with all these ideas how Carmel shows she's a kind dog. And then we asked them, okay, and how would you learn from Carmel? How can you show kindness then to other people, like in school, in your families? They were just so engaged in applying what they've learned from my dog to how they can do this in the classroom or in the families. We had conversations about how dogs are different, so how dogs can show certain things differently because they are dogs, obviously. And from then, I started reading my book about how we became a therapy dog team to children. They were just so engaged because this was a book about their dog. So they were so delighted to hear it. And at that time, I remember also teacher was teaching them what visualization is, and it's a literacy actually strategy. But I used this reading opportunity, and I was there just a therapy dog handler. I didn't teach. We used this opportunity to connect therapy dog the book and the visualization. So I was reading a part in the book, and I told them before I read it, now you're going to close your eyes, and I'm going to read a scene, and then you're going to visualize. And I remember all the kids just closed their eyes, were so serious about it, and they were imagining this whole scene that I read about. And then they were telling us about the scene. They were creating, they imagined everything that was in the book and beyond. They were like adding more more to it because they wanted to see Carmel doing some more things in those scenes. I mean, it was incredible to hear. And then when we asked them to write about it, total different engagement. Even kids who were not able or didn't want to write even a single sentence, all of a sudden they are engaged. They want to write. Yes, they might need some help, but they want to actually do it and then maybe add a picture of Carmel. They just loved it. And this led to creating of the whole writing project for children. They created their own biographies because they wanted to. They asked us, can we write our own books? And these were kids who never like really wrote much anything. And so then we created like the series of simple lessons, and they created their own biographies with many chapters. Some of these chapters were like 6 or 7 chapters in those books. So this is, I think the sky is the limit. It's just about experimenting a little bit more between the teachers and therapy dog teams. That's all that needs to happen, willingness to experiment. But now we are also doing therapy dog visits with math. And we have children who build understanding of math, which is also literacy, by the way, in a way that is absolutely incredible. They hated math. They're very weak. They're very, very weak. That's why they end up in the math group, a remedial math group. But again, math becomes entertainment, movement. My dog becomes a math checker for them, math teacher assistant. And again, it's very simple, it's innovative, but it's a very simple concept. So I think that they can help in so many different areas and literally in every subject. And it can be very simple, just the presence, or it can be a little bit more innovation in which the dog can actually become a teacher assistant and do some more.
Wow. So normally when I think of reading therapy dogs, I think of the classroom. I think of
Yeah.
kids, I think of elementary school. But as I mentioned to you before we clicked record, I was at my local library not too long ago, and they had a sign up on the bulletin board for the reading therapy dog sessions. And they had one session that was dedicated only to adults. It wasn't kids coming to read, it was adults coming to read either to. So they said you could read aloud or you could just simply snuggle next to the dog and read silently. Have you seen any of that kind of use of a therapy dog in your therapy dog world where adults are finding as much benefits as the children are?
I haven't seen specifically a situation in which there is a reading session and adults are readers and dogs, therapy dogs, accompany and just sit next to them and adults read to them. But therapy dogs and other therapy animals do go and see adults of all ages regularly because they go to hospitals, they go to nursing homes in which a patient might read, let's say, and the dog will sit right next to them or maybe on their lap if it's a little dog. So they go to airports. There's actually even more and more therapy dogs that are at the airports now. When I fly, I see at least one therapy dog all the time at the airport. So they enter all kinds of environments in which you have children and adults of all different ages. There is no limitations as far as where they can go to help others in some sort of need. And these needs are increasing.
Yeah.
in our society, as we know. So I am not surprised that that was a session for adults who read, and they felt better doing this activity with the presence of the therapy dog. It could have been a therapy horse, or maybe a llama, or a bunny, or a piggy, because certain therapy organizations certified also other animals, or therapy cats. There are therapy cats too.
I did
So,
not know that. I am
yeah,
I am definitely a dog person over a cat person, so I didn't know that. And maybe it'll make me
yeah,
look at cats differently now.
yeah. I know. I follow some on Instagram. Yeah, so they do. There is a therapy dog organization. Their name is Pet Partners. We don't work with them, but I am associated with them through certain other connections, and they certified all many animals. I mean, there has to be some kind of some conditions, specific conditions, what therapy, what animal can potentially become a therapy animal. They have to be willing to take some kind of guidance, direction from the handler, for sure. So we cannot have therapy spiders or snakes.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's the anti word of therapy that I think of as spiders and snakes. So it's got me thinking because everyone might not have an adult reading dog therapy session that they might be able to go to, but many of us do have pets. They might not be therapy pets that have been trained in a specific way. I'm the first one to say my dogs are wonderful, but they are not perfectly behaved four-legged friends. But I never really thought about how they could enhance my own reading. And I spend a lot of time thinking about how reading can make life better. We know that when we read, even just 6 minutes of reading calms our heart rate down. It relaxes our muscles. There are so many cognitive and emotional benefits that come from just sitting down and reading. And while my dogs naturally gravitate towards me when I do, because I think, I've got one at my feet and the small ones up on the
Mhm.
couch cushions, I never thought about how their presence might actually be supporting my own reading, whether that's because I just feel that someone's there, because I feel like I'm not alone, because it's just comfort, because they're there. It's so interesting to me that I've got four of these little things running around me, and I never thought about how they could add to that experience. What do you think about that? Of if you have a pet in your home, can it can it make reading better? Can just having your dog, if you allow it, hop up on the sofa with you
Yeah.
enhance that experience? What do you think?
Uh, I think and here the reason why you're saying that you have not thought about it, because you are already a good reader. You probably don't need so much external motivation to start reading, and
Right.
you're an expert as far as reading. But you can imagine an adult who is not so much into reading, maybe more into television or something else, and just an idea. But if they have a dog or a cat, uh, you just have to be conscious about it, I think. Uh, you have to think something like, well, okay, I really would love to read this book. I've heard so much about it, but I just don't feel like doing it. I'm not really a reader. I don't do it very often. And then, but maybe my dog or my cat can help me with this. And usually what happens, this is a good idea that I would use if I wasn't a reader. When I sit down, usually my dog just comes in and wants to sit next to me. I
Mhm.
know that cats like to do that too. I used to have cats. So when that happens and they get very comfortable, you don't want to just leave the couch. You don't want to disturb their comfort, right? They haven't seen you all day long or whatever, and now they get comfortable. They want to be with you. So just make sure that you or our listener gets ready for this, has the book right there next to them, or maybe call someone in the house, hey, can you bring me the book because I cannot get up.
Right, right. They've literally got you in your reading spot. And so
Mhm.
now
Yeah,
the only thing left to do is to read. I never
yeah.
thought, Barb, of having a pet as a reading accountability partner. You
So
know,
that would be a real reading accountability partner, and it serves a lot of purposes because you give your dog the time to be with you, and you use that time also productively to read something. And again, uh, big tasks usually scare people, so why not to read 2 pages, right? It doesn't have to be 10 or 20, but
right.
like that, just create a little routine that makes you feel really comfortable, and your dog benefits too, or a cat,
Yeah.
or any other animal that people have.
Yeah.
Yeah, having animals an accountability partner, why not?
I know, why not? And I know you mentioned at first, they can really be helpful accountability partners if you're reading something maybe you're not that into, or reading is something that you don't really love, but you want to. They can be that
Yes.
accountability partner that way. But I'm also thinking for someone who loves to read, which are a lot of people listening to this podcast, we may love to read, but we may find it hard to make the time. And looking at this as a dual opportunity to spend some time with those four-legged friends I love. But I also talk a lot about, in my work on restorative reading, how we often need a signal to our nervous system to calm down. So we know from research that 30 minutes of reading, of connected 30 minutes of reading, has the same effect on our parasympathetic nervous system as 30 minutes of yoga. And we also know that some sort of signal, usually based from our five senses, can help us drop into that relaxed state sooner, whether it's lighting the candle that you love or putting on your favorite ASMR room that's got the fun bookstore background. And I'm thinking that just patting that couch and having that animal friend come up and sit with you and pet it for a few minutes could likely have that same signal effect on your nervous system to calm down, and it's time to read, and
Mhm.
nothing else needs your attention, and this animal wants your time and is here for you. I feel like that could be a great added layer to just help you really savor that reading time too.
I think so too. And I often, when I sit down on the couch, my dog is next to me, and sometimes she goes partially on my lap, partially because she is 67-pound dog, cannot entirely fit on my lap, but she tries. And I noticed that because for professionals who are also active on social media to further our missions, we are using all these kind of opportunities throughout the day to go on that cell phone and to engage with people, our followers. But when I sit next to my dog and I have my phone, I feel like I'm robbing her of that time with her. So but when I read a physical book actually next to her, then I don't have this feeling. So it's something to think about as well. I mean, you give them some time, you pet them, and then you just pick up the book and read a little bit when they are with you. That is actually creating a bonding situation here, I think. Whereas being on the phone when you have your dog next to you on your lap, it doesn't really do that. At least that is what my feeling is, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we know there's so much research out there about that. Yes, social media can help us feel connected and it has its good points, but it also has the negatives of taking us away from the present and taking us away
Mhm.
from the relationships and the ideas that are right in front of us, even if they are with dogs and pets rather than humans. Putting that phone down,
Yeah.
definitely can strengthen that. I know my golden doodle, I have a golden doodle, I have a labradoodle, and I have two little Yorkies. And It's always one of the doodles who will end up jumping up on the couch next to me, put his head kind of down on my legs, my feet if I'm all snuggled up, and sometimes his back is my book rest. And I just never thought of him of being a reading buddy, but in
Yeah.
fact, he really, really is. Oh, I love it. Well, tell me more about the picture book that you wrote, the children's book. I would love to hear about it.
So that was also an idea that connects to my child, to autism, because I've noticed that in school, so every autistic children is a little bit different because it's a spectrum. So I remember my daughter's, one of her behaviors that she had was talking a lot about her own interests, just very knowing a lot about those interests because these children build so much knowledge about what they are interested in, and then wanting to share with everybody, no matter if I like it or not. Whether it's the idea or not, she's gonna share it, and not realizing really when she was younger and that's what was happening. But I noticed that while it's important to then tell my child, there are not always good situations in which you should share your interest. Not everybody is interested in this. So that was a part of my work with her. But I've noticed also that some schools, I don't want to generalize, I kind of always maybe not put the blame on the autistic children, that they are the ones that need to adjust. They have to stop their annoying behavior. But I started to think, well, that shouldn't be that way because sometimes certain behaviors from autistic children, they can't be immediately stopped. That's just the way these brains work. And it's a lot about also how the rest of the population understands it or not, and has some strategies also to learn how to cope with this and how to tolerate and how to understand, okay, this behavior is different, but that doesn't mean it's bad. That means that maybe, I don't know, I can take advantage of this. If someone knows a lot about a specific interest, maybe if I don't see it as just annoying, maybe I can benefit from this. So I became interested in this idea of including my dog as a therapy dog character, going to school for a therapy visit, because that's what she usually does, and seeing a situation that is not good, in which a child is not treated very well by another child, and my dog, in using her ways, doing a little bit of teaching, like why why do you have to be so mean to another child? What about if you start think about the situation a little bit differently? So that's really how this idea happened, so to speak. But again, it is all about therapy dogs in the classroom, and their incredible benefits, and using this idea as well in the children's book form to help children who are a little bit different. And it doesn't have to be an autistic child. There are other children who are also different, maybe behave a little bit differently, but that doesn't mean that this behavior should be excluded. Uh, it means that we need to be curious about this behavior maybe a little bit more. So that's the whole background of it.
I love it because you started out by talking about how the dog wasn't just a therapy dog, but technically was becoming a co-teacher. And now the
Yeah,
dog is literally teaching. And
exactly.
and just like students, children, adults can often respond differently to the pets in ways that they can't or won't to adults. I imagine them reading about that process will have the same effect. They can get that message perhaps a little bit clearer, a little bit easier than, because it's coming from that therapy dog, than it is coming from, let's say, an authority figure in the
Mhm.
classroom, which just changes the whole premise of it.
Exactly. So I basically connected what I'm doing in reality when I take Carmel to school, and how she is actually a teacher assistant. And she is teaching in this book. This teaching completely comes from her, not from the teacher. The teacher just invites her to the classroom, and then something happens in the classroom. And Carmel, the therapy dog, takes care of it in her own ways.
I love it. Congratulations on that. That's
Thank
exciting.
you so much.
In that book.
And I have to say, that also created an opportunity to work with my sister, who is an artist, and she illustrated the book. And this is actually her first illustrating task. She's never illustrated, and that's what happened. So,
Just love when all the pieces like that just fall together and it's exactly
exactly.
where it's supposed to be. How
Yeah.
exciting for the two of you to share it, as well as your therapy dog and your daughter, I
Yeah.
imagine. This is
Exactly. It's like this
really a fair.
full circle and everything connects. And now when I look at autism, I have a totally different outlook right now. And knowing over the years to getting to know my daughter, what kind of person she is, I have to say to everyone that autistic children are incredible. They're absolutely incredible. And many of them are geniuses in the way what they can do that other people cannot do. She is really artistically also, just like my sister, talented here. And every day it just makes me, when I see something that she does, I am just not sure how she does it. It's just unbelievable. We don't understand it. If you don't have this talent and skill, you will not understand it. And many other children, and many of them are incredibly genuine adults. So in the world of sometimes not the best behaviors, not much kindness, autistic children, I believe they can really teach us about kindness quite a bit. They also go through a lot in their lives because they have to interact with the world that is not always so friendly towards them. And a lot of it, unfortunately, happens in schools too. Maybe it's lack of understanding, but they can really contribute a lot to our society. And I think it was meant to be, because now I can see it's so much better than when I got this initial diagnosis and it was like this paralysis. Like, what's this? I don't want this. Now I don't think like that about this at all.
What a beautiful gift.
That's really what I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, I am so grateful that you came on to talk about it, to talk about your work. It has been far too long since we had caught up. And I'm hoping you'll tell listeners where can they find you online if they want to connect with you around around therapy dogs in the classroom, around your experiences. What's the best place to send them?
Thank you so much. So I am quite active on, especially, well, I think on three platforms. So that would be Instagram, and that's dr.barb.educator. I am also on Facebook as Barbara Vokatis, and on LinkedIn, Barbara Vokatis, PhD, I think. So I'm trying to be active there. I'm posting a lot. I'm posting about my books. I'm posting about our activities in this area of innovation in dog therapy. That's where I am. I also have a website, www.barbaravocatis.com. So I would encourage listeners to visit that as well, and contact me. I am a very friendly person. So when you write me a DM or message on Facebook, I will get to it, and I'll be very happy to have an exchange conversation. Hear what you think. Do you interact with therapy dogs, or maybe you have a question because you are really interested in bringing this incredible practice to your school district? And I can always point listeners to an incredible organization too that knows a lot about this and is um, sort of takes care of the professionalism in this area of therapy dogs. I can definitely point to some information. So I'll be happy to connect. I'm a very friendly person.
And I can vouch for that. The friendliness,
That's right.
the funness, the connection. I'll vouch for that. And I will put links to your website and those various social media handles right in the show notes to make it easier for everyone to find you. Wasn't that such an interesting and intriguing conversation. I know I hadn't really thought about the benefits that reading with my 4 dogs could bring me, but now I am. Having them snuggle up with me on the couch just gets me calmer as I am reading. Petting the couch to have them jump up might be the signal to my nervous system that it's time to relax. There's just so many ways that the pet connection could enhance the reading experience. And so I wanted to end with 3 books that I've added to my own personal TBR stack that embrace this idea of dogs being friends, dogs being therapy, dogs being central to these particular stories. So the first one up on my TBR, and yes, I have not read these yet. So I've chosen these because I have either found them online, I found them on some of my favorite book lists, or they were recommended to me by my local librarian. So first up is Alex Kelso's A Dog's Heart and Other Stories. Now, I can't wait to dive into this one because this is a collection of short stories. And in fact, on Goodreads, it says it's an uplifting collection of feel-good stories sure to warm the hearts of dog lovers everywhere. Now, these short stories are a mix of things. So one story, we've got a shy dog walker, Libby, who has a crush on a handsome stranger at the park and hopes that their sweet canines can come together and help break the ice between the owners. We've got Brody the Labrador, so the actual dog. He wants a new girlfriend for his owner, and he's hatching a plan that gets him into a lot more trouble than he bargained for. And then we've got June, who is a charity worker, and she fears for the homeless dog that she cares for after the donation money is running out. But she's stunned by a helping hand from a mysterious stranger. So these are the kinds of feel-good stories that you can find packed into this particular book. But the central theme is that they all have dogs as being a very important element. So if you are a dog lover, I have a feeling that you will love this collection of short stories as much as I think I'm going to. So that's Alex Kelso's A Dog's Heart. Now, moving on to the second recommendation. This is a fiction book, and it's titled One Good Thing by Alexandra Potter. And it's about the unpredictability of life, right? You think everything is going well, you think you have everything figured out, and then something can happen that can literally change the trajectory of your tomorrow and everything that comes after it. And that's what happens to Liv. Liv is in shock. She's newly divorced. She's got an uncertain future ahead of her now that she doesn't quite know what to do with. And so she decides to leave her London life behind to go to Yorkshire Dales. And she is determined to make a fresh start. But as many of us know, fresh starts are harder than they look. And she's feeling lost. She's feeling lonely. And so she decides to adopt Harry. And Harry is an old dog from the local shelter, and she's hoping that he will keep her company. But as Liv discovers, she's not the only one in need of a new beginning. As Harry and Liv walk around the community, they meet people. They meet people who are lonely, who are suffering, who is scared, who is angry, who is trying to make their own fresh start. And through these walks and these connections, things slowly start to change. So it's a book about friendship, about finding happiness, about turning that unexpected life you have into a life that is still well lived. And all the threads that are being held together in this book are the dog and the daily walks that they take together. Now, this reminds me of books like The Authenticity Project or The Reading List, where something brings a group of unlikely strangers together. And that's why this book ended up on my TBR. I love that kind of theme. And better yet, there's a dog at the center of it. So that's One Good Thing by Alexandra Potter. Now, the last book I want to share with you that I have added to my own TBR list is called The Dog Share. and it's by Fiona Gibson. This instantly got my attention because I read The Flat Share by, oh gosh, I think it's Claire Pooley. And so when titles are similar, they just kind of jump out at me for better or for worse. And this is about Susie. And Susie starts off by having a bad day. And it's a bad day that doesn't seem to be getting any better when this unlikely, shabby terrier just shows up at her door. Now, just like Susie feels, Scout, I'm sorry, not Scott, the dog's name is Scout. He's been abandoned, and they kind of are an unlikely pair, right? Susie's been abandoned by her ex, and she's left with a business that's struggling and a financial mess. And Scout's been abandoned and doesn't know quite what to do. So Susie takes him in. And of course, what you might expect is that her chaotic world starts to change in unexpected ways. Strangers feel more welcoming. Her teenage kids actually can't wait to come visit now that Scout is there. And Scout brings more than those changes to her life, brings a little bit of unpredictability because as things get more complicated, Susie realizes she might not be the only one who needs a friend. And unlike Scout, who has plenty of love to go around to everyone, Susie is not so sure that she still does. Isn't that such a beautiful setup? So that's The Dog Share by Fiona Gibson. So I loved this conversation with Barb. I loved really thinking through the idea that pets can enhance our reading life. And because of that deep dive, I had so much fun exploring books that I know I would love to read, and I think you will too. So I do hope that you will pick up one or two or three of these, or at least just consider inviting your pet up onto the couch as you read your next book and enhance your reading experience. So thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Get Literate podcast. And thanks for sticking with me even through those audio issues. I promise I have learned a lot from this experience and know what to do to avoid it next time. So happy reading, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. Plus, if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much, much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.